If you're an entrepreneur or trying to succeed in certain areas of your life, meeting successful people probably has a bigger impact in your life than the average Joe. Jordan Welch, a successful entrepreneur with a net worth of $5 million, who's been in the game of entrepreneurship far longer than most people, shared his experience meeting other multimillionaires throughout his journey to success.
Growing up, I only saw millionaires on TV, and every single time I saw these people, they were either rappers, they were athletes, or they were white dudes in suits and ties. The people that I had in my life were not anywhere near $1 million, so a millionaire seemed like something that was so far out of my reality. But the first time that I actually met a millionaire was when I was 16 years old. I had went to a book signing for Damon John, the guy from Shark Tank, and when I was at this book signing, I seen one guy in there that pulled up in a nice looking shirt. He looked a little different from the rest of everybody, and I just walked up to him and I said, "What's up?" And it turns out that this guy owns one of the biggest aluminum companies in my city. His company at that time was making millions of dollars per year, and what I come to realize was he was just a regular guy. We were from the same hometown, he didn't come from a lot of money, and he didn't have any crazy expensive clothes or watch or jewelry. He didn't even drive in a nice car, he was driving in a pickup truck. But this guy was a millionaire. And after meeting him, he actually became my mentor, and he worked with me over the next couple years of my life and guided me on the path that allowed me to make my first $1 million on the internet just 3 years later. But the biggest lesson that I learned from being around him is that millionaires and successful people are just regular people just like you and me. So the fact that this guy did it means that I can go out and do it for myself. And this was a huge mindset shift for me at that time. Back in 2017, when I started my first online store, I had set a goal for myself to generate $15,000 in revenue for the whole year. And what's crazy is that back then, I thought that goal was so massive. I thought that was the craziest goal ever, and I didn't even think I was gonna achieve that. I remember when I shared this goal with my mentor, he literally laughed at me and he told me to my face, "You need to think bigger, you need to aim higher, or else you're never gonna get to where you wanna actually go." And I did. And instead of finishing the year with $15,000 in sales, I ended the year of 2017 with over $500,000 in sales on my store. The point of this lesson is that to make $1 million, you don't have to come up with something brand new. The blueprint is already out there. You know, success leaves clues. You could just follow in the footsteps of people that have already done what you want to do and just add your own touch to it. And that's going to be the key to you making your money online. If you think of almost any business owner that you know, they followed this lesson. But the reason why they succeeded is lesson number 5, and it's that they're better than you. Yes, I said it. These millionaires are better than you. It's not that you're a bad person, and I'm sure your mom still loves you so much, but the reason why you're not successful and these other people are beating you is because they're better than you at the thing you're trying to do. If you're trying to start a dropshipping store and you're struggling, but you see somebody else out there that's making $10,000 a day, there's no secret to it. He didn't find some magical winning product. He's simply better than you at website design, at marketing, at advertising. He's probably in better shape than you. He's probably healthier than you. He probably took your girlfriend on a date last night. So why have you not become good enough at something to make millions of dollars from it? Well, it's likely because you're trying 5 different business models at the same time. And one of the biggest myths out there about making money is that to make millions of dollars, you need multiple streams of income. If you're trying to make your first $1 million, that ain't the way to do it. The key to making your first million is picking one path that aligns with the type of person that you are and sticking with that path for as long as it takes to become successful. If you keep bouncing from idea to idea because this week's guru has a new method for you to follow, you are in for a long and painful journey, my friend. And I see too many people that are 18, 19, 20 years old that are telling me they're stressed because they haven't made $1 million yet. Are you kidding me? You are a literal child. You have so much time, you have no idea. During this journey of trying to make your first $1 million, you cannot lose your soul because it's going to take time. It's going to be hard. But one day, when you make that first $1 million, you're gonna look back on that day when you were 18 years old with a smile on your face and you're gonna cherish it. So if you're in that situation right now, no matter what age you are, just understand that these are the days you're gonna cherish forever when you finally make $1 million. And spoiler alert, when you make $1 million, your life doesn't really change that much.
Another successful entrepreneur and real estate broker with an insane net worth of $30 million, his lifetime sales being over $8 billion, shared his side of meeting and networking with billionaires. Due to his willingness to be humble, despite being a very successful millionaire, he was able to make quite a few connections with people far more successful than he was.
There are currently 2,640 billionaires in the world that we know of, and on this phone are 94 of them. I have 94 billionaires in my contacts. Some of them are friends, a lot of them are clients, and I bring this up because in some way, shape, or form, they're all my mentors. Billionaires know the value of a dollar and they know the value of their time more than anyone I've ever worked with. And you might be thinking, what? That's weird. Texting? Don't they have calls and lawyers and this, that, whole teams? I mean, yes, they have all of that. But when I'm interacting with them directly, billionaires don't have time for phone calls. Jeff Bezos, who's not in my phone, he makes $2,500 a second. A phone call that takes away time from billionaires making money is not a good use of their time. But they can fire off a text or a voice note that deletes very, very, very quickly. Oftentimes they use the app Signal so that you're not screenshotting or saving messages and things can disappear really quickly, especially when we're doing real estate transactions together. A lot of it is very, very sensitive information. But I've negotiated $100 million deals over iMessage. And yet the person I work with who's trying to buy a home for $1 million calls me 62 times, has to meet with me and his family, brings in bankers, brings in attorneys, brings in everyone. Less wealthy people have an idea of what it means to be wealthy, where actual wealthy people understand that being wealthy is just about their greatest asset, which is time. I'm in the middle of 2 negotiations right now with 2 of these billionaires, completely over text. I'd much rather meet in person. They've got great offices, or talk on the phone or get a meal with them so I can learn. But nope, it's all over text message. They are experts at not wasting time. I went to dinner with my first billionaire client years and years and years ago. He ordered the minute the waiter came over to bring us water. There was no sitting there and reviewing the menu. There was no asking for the specials, none of that. Here's the water. Okay, I'm gonna have this, and what do you want? And if you don't tell me what you want right now, I'm gonna order for you. We're gonna enjoy the dinner, we're gonna talk. We are on a time schedule. And it didn't feel stressful at all. Honestly, felt relaxing, like we weren't wasting any time. I did dinner with another billionaire, and when the waiter came over right at the beginning, he just held up the menu like this, didn't even look, and said, "Surprise us." Because when you go to a nice restaurant, you know the food's gonna be good. Billionaires act differently, and it's not rude. If anything, it's super, super nice because they understand the value of the waiter's time. Making a decision about dinner is a small decision, but what I've learned is that billionaires make big decisions quickly because that's their job. 3, billionaires are always on guard of being taken advantage of. This is also why it's hard to get in touch with billionaires. It's hard to have them as clients. They really trust no one because they've been taken advantage of. They've learned from that mistake, and new people entering into their sphere of influence, into their circle of trust, puts them on guard. One of my tricks in working with billionaire clients early on in my career was working for free. I offered up commissions, and obviously the billionaire can afford it, but it was the gesture. I'm not gonna treat you differently from anybody else. What else can I do? The other thing that I did to make sure that the billionaires knew that I wasn't taking advantage of them ever was to get in with their outer circle of trust. Whether it's the landscaper or the nanny or the private banker or the attorney, as quickly as that trust can be understood, it can be destroyed. Billionaires also have no issue in moving on from relationships that don't serve them in like a millisecond. You have a 10-year working relationship with someone who's incredibly successful and wealthy. You lie to them once, make one little mistake. You don't show up on time once. You lead them down the wrong path once. That's it. They now lose all confidence and trust in you, and there are other people who do what you do. They have loyalty when the relationship works on both sides. If it doesn't, they move on. Another thing I've learned from billionaires is that they understand the difference between possessions and growth. And they're not afraid to spend. Now that might sound obvious to you, but it's interesting to watch someone who has a net worth of over $1 billion be incredibly cheap over here and then overspend over here. They might kill a deal over $5 over here because they understand that this is not going to do a whole lot for their success, for their long-term growth. But they'll overspend over here by millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars because it's an investment in greater growth. Now, a lot of billionaires have very cool material goods, huge houses, planes, automobiles, trips, experiences. But if you didn't know what they looked like, you typically wouldn't notice them when you walk down the streets because they're not super flashy. They don't wear their wealth on their clothes most of the time. Most billionaires are pretty frugal when it comes to material possessions. The great example is obviously Warren Buffett. Same house, same car, same breakfast from McDonald's with change from his cup holder. And then you have others, Saudi royals, you have the Jeff Bezoses of the world, but then you have others. You have Elon Musk, who has no possessions, no houses. Billionaires will certainly spend money, but they'll spend money if it gets them a return. A yacht is a great example. A yacht is incredibly expensive, but they have them because it's an investment in future business. They can have other billionaires on that yacht, and that's where deals get done. Their houses as well, on the ocean in Malibu and Palm Beach, castles in France. They are investments in doing future business because they can say to other people, come to my castle, let's talk about the deal. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you had $1 billion, you would also probably have a castle or a beach house. My biggest takeaway is that they only focus on what they are absolutely best at what they are uniquely qualified to do. They don't worry about any of the minutia, any of the work below the absolute biggest decisions every day. Now, obviously, they've gotten to that point where they don't have to do the painting and the building and the hammering. If I want to emulate the most successful business leaders and entrepreneurs in the world today, it's that most of my day should be focused on what I am absolutely best at focusing on. Everything else should be leveraged to other people. It's kind of a mindset shift as well. Using other people to leverage your work is a massive, massive tool. Billionaires are just like us. They're regular people with regular problems, albeit higher quality problems. One of my earliest experiences with a billionaire client was going to a private airport to board their private plane. And he was talking to me about how his plane wasn't available because of a mechanical issue, and he was frustrated because he had to get another plane. Now that sounds like a crazy problem, a 1%er, a 0.0000001%er problem, right? Absolutely, but he wasn't crying about it. He wasn't crying to me or anybody else. You have a higher quality life. That means you also have higher quality problems. And it was my job to help with that. I immediately from that situation started helping the billionaire clients that I had fix their higher quality problems. And that's how I started to get to know so many of them. Because if someone has a private jet issue, they're not going to talk to the friends they had in college about it. They're not going to talk to people in their office about it because it would be weird and uncomfortable. It's an awkward display of wealth. So they need people to talk to about it. And I wanted to be that person. And if you can be someone who can solve the high quality problem that a billionaire has, that is your ticket into that society.
Noah Kagan also has a very interesting outlook on meeting successful entrepreneurs. Since he's in the tech business and is also an entrepreneur, he has been able to meet 1% of the world's billionaires.
First lesson I learned from these billionaires is that there are 0 employee billionaires. If you take only one thing away from this video, learn this. You must be your own boss if you want to become a billionaire. You cannot W-2 your way to billions. Now let's take Michael Hudner, the 76-year-old shipping magnate, described this perfectly in our interview.
The father of a girl I know, and he left the corporate world because he'd figured out how to buy a distressed piece of real estate with somebody else, and they were off and running, which is an important thing to be able to do, to get away from W-2 income. I mean, if you've got people who are trying to figure out how to do this, you got to keep your expenses down.
So the first one that I think is so important is you're keeping your expenses down, or as I like to call it, that LCL, that low cost lifestyle. Just sharing my own, I was fortunate to have parents that I could live with. So I lived with my mom for 2 years after college. I lived in my aunt's basement for a year, shout out Aunt Rhonda. And then I lived on floors, literally on floors for a year, also driving Honda CRXs. The power of a low-cost lifestyle is that it gives you less pressure, more freedom to do the thing you want so that you can hit your freedom number or the amount of money you need to make so that you can live the life you want to live. And that'll also help you create a lot more money because you're doing it the way you want. And the last thing he said, you have to get away from the W-2 income. And what he is saying there is that when you're an employee, there is a cap of your salary. Your paycheck as a W-2 worker, as an employee, will never be $1 billion. It likely won't ever be greater than a couple $1 million, and those are rare cases. Entrepreneurship is a pursuit of freedom that can only be fully embraced once you leave behind the W-2 world. I just gotta say that I don't think W-2 thing is an evil thing. What I'm trying to say is if you wanna be a billionaire, you give out the W-2s, you don't receive it. Billionaires create their market. Whoever creates the market takes home the billions. Mark Zuckerberg created the social networking market, billionaire. Travis Kalanick created the ride-sharing market, billionaire. However, the thing about creating $1 billion market is it's usually never obvious. You seem crazy at first. Zuck, he chased social networking back with Facebook in college in 2004. That's 20 years ago. Paul Ophelia, he chased consumer printing, copy machines. We don't even know about these anymore. At Kinko's in the 1970s, when printing was mainly a commercial industry. John Paul DeJoria started Patron Tequila when there was 0 top shelf tequila brands and no one bought it for nearly 2 years when he launched it. Just listen to how painful John Paul DeJoria's story about first taking Patron to market was.
Nobody would take us. Nobody wanted the product. Everyone we ran across said, I've never tasted anything like this, but it's way too expensive. The average tequila in 1989 was around $5 a bottle. I think the best one was $14 if you could find it. We had to sell ours for $37.95, way more than anybody else. They said no. I walked into Spago's restaurant. Wolfgang Puck was a friend of mine, and Spago's was the restaurant in Beverly Hills to go to. And I gave him, say, oh, JP, this is good stuff. I said, would you serve it to your celebrity friends? He said, of course, it's the best, because they were known as the best of the best.
When most entrepreneurs are faced with that kind of rejection, they stop. But John did what most billionaires do and kept going. Sure, some of the efforts led him back to the same dead end of market rejection, but he kept going and going and going and going, all the way until he finally cracked the market, established the genre of high-end tequila, and cashed out with a over $3 billion paycheck.
It's one product that was too expensive that nobody wanted. And they had right that all the statistical data is no one could ever approach that, right? But all of a sudden it took on and people wanted to treat themselves to the very, very best. When I sold Patron about 5 years ago, we were approaching 4 million cases a year. And obviously, as you probably know, it's public record. It went for the largest amount ever with any spirits company. But so you don't believe what people tell you. You believe yourself. If someone tells you something that's real, there's no reason not to believe them. But if they tell you something negative, question it. What do you feel in your own heart? What do you feel can be done? And just go for it.
I love John Paul DeJoria. Let me just shout out that right there. The belief you have in yourself needs to have a higher standard than the belief you place in other people, or your road to $1 billion won't likely ever reach 10-figure territory. Non-obvious markets have the most potential for growth and risk, and obvious markets are now obvious because they are highly saturated and competitive. For example, everyone is talking about and flooding the AI market with new innovations and iterations of how to apply this new tech to consumer interfaces. But if you actually look back at market leaders like OpenAI, it was founded back in 2015 when AI was just a whisper and far from the $1 billion pot at the end of the rainbow that it is today. But the reality is the majority of billionaires live surprisingly simple and aesthetically extreme lives. Larry Janeski, who built a $1 billion basement construction company, played his motivational tapes for me in a $40,000 Chevy Impala. James, the private jet interview. He made billions trading in energy commodities, pulled up in a humble BMW. It's humble, it's not a McLaren, although we were going on his multi-million dollar private jet. Michael Hudner, who's done billions of dollars in shipping inventory, he dressed like a really good-looking store manager. One of the most interesting billionaires I've talked to is Larry Janeski. He is a true blue-collar billionaire. That's what his words, not mine, building an empire around the basement construction, repair, and improvement business. Larry even made a compelling case when he stated,
people that did well before then, okay? So tech isn't the only way to make money, okay? You go to the store, you buy groceries, you go to a mall and you have all this retail. But, the cool thing is about working with your hands is that you can never be replaced by AI. Amazon's not gonna take over. Your job is not gonna be offshored to India or anywhere else, right? Nobody can go in to a homeowner and fix their basement from Amazon or from India, or no robot is ever gonna, fix a crawl space.
Billionaires like Larry, James, Michael, and Paul have come to the realization that money is by no means the goal, but rather the tool they are most skilled at using to build the life they now lead. Concept of overpaying and frugality still exists. This is not because they want to save money. It's because more than anyone on the scale of wealth, they respect and understand money to an extreme depth. Here's straight from the mouth of a billionaire who led us on his private jet.
With money comes great responsibility, or you could just do whatever the hell you want.
Many of us assume people with billions come from the freedom to do whatever the hell they want, but it's quite the opposite in many cases. The sheer amount of power that $1 billion comes with, let alone 2, 3, 4 billions, is amazingly earth-shaking. And because they're aware of the responsibility that comes with so much wealth, they are forever aware when something is overpriced and get pissed off when they're asked to overpay.
Man, there's sometimes I buy something and they charge you a price that's so extreme and outrageous, you're like, it's insulting. It's like somebody slapped you across the face.
The superpower of a billionaire is their fluency in the language of money. They know what it is and what its purpose is more profoundly than any of us. And for that reason, they will not overpay for anything. Clothes, cars, planes, or even steak.
I go to a restaurant now, I get a steak. Every single steak is now $60 now. It better be a damn good steak for $60. Because in my opinion, people don't make steaks very good anymore.
If a $60 steak is overpriced for a billionaire, what are we doing? The concept of overpaying applies to the way billionaires connect their time and happiness to money. James from the private jet, he was really clear about this when he talked about turning down $100,000 from the military to re-sign.
So I realized very quickly that was the value of my happiness. They would have offered me $100,000 re-enlistment bonus to stay in. It wasn't worth my happiness. When I realized that I put a value on my happiness and it had a dollar number, I was like, okay, that's the number. Getting fired from Excel Energy because I demanded that I be paid what I was worth. I demanded I actually get paid for doing somebody else's job, which I was doing. I was doing the job of 3 people. And I wanted to get paid maybe 5% more, so I was fired for that. And that gave me the initiative and the drive to be like, I'm going to show these people how this is done.
Billionaires need to respect money. They need to protect money. And they will do it at all levels, whether it is buying an entire company or ordering a steak. They value $1 just as much as $999 million. They've made millions and billions so they can use it, not to lose it. The mindset and attitude of billionaires towards money, it never changes. And the 5th lesson I learned, billionaires make 10 figures doing just one thing. Larry Janeski, Just Basements. They do over $600 million a year in revenue. Well, that's amazing. John Paul DeJoria, Just Hair Care. He's got over a $3 billion net worth. Michael Hudner, who we've been talking about, Just Ships, and he's done over $1 billion in shipping transactions. But let me tell you, the real magic happens when you go all in on that one thing that's working. And here's the catch. Making that one thing equal 10 figures is not a sprint. This is where the sexiness happens. We always fixate on these billionaires that did get rich, but not how long they were at it. None of these titans of industry achieved billionaire status overnight. Not one. It literally took decades of dedication. There is a price to be paid if you want this level of wealth, straight up. And billionaires have paid in full. They have told me how deep that cost can cut. When I snuck on a James private jet to ask him about his journey to billionaire status, he opened up about what he sacrificed to do.
I guess I was wondering for you, do you ever regret working so much? Like, was it worth it? Like all the work and all the sacrifice?
It placed a heavy toll on my family life. And whenever my first marriage fell apart, what I was left with is that I have 3 beautiful children. And my time with my family was the most important thing in the world to me. Way more important than any money. After my divorce, I would have given everything away because I can always make money, but you can't get back time with people.
Mindful of, yes, it's good to make money. Yes, it's good to be aggressive. Yes, it's good to go after what you want, but also not sacrificing everything along the way, because just to keep chasing forever, I don't think you'll ever find satisfaction. I don't think you'll ever find contentment. And so at different points, yes, it's good to go after the money, but being mindful to take a step back and say, hey, what's really important right now? And am I having the balance that I actually want, and will I regret it? Now, I think it's easy for us to idolize these life of billionaires because all we can see from the outside is everything, the planes, the cars, the yachts, the girls, the traveling, the items, the things. But we forget that these ultra successful and wealthy people are still made from the same flesh. They use a toilet just like you and me do. Probably really nice ones, but they're still using it. Now, I'm super thankful for people like James who've opened up about what he sacrificed on his way to wealth, because it shows that nothing comes without a cost, and every cost is usually in proportion to its reward. And $1 billion is no small reward. Michael Hudner, the shipping magnate, also opened up about the loss of his son on his road to wealth.
That's why I made my comments about the money culture, especially for kids. I mean, it's tough on them. I mean, I see the kids today, they all think they should have what their parents have, and their parents might have spent a generation working for it. And that's not true of everybody. Some people are born with it. That wasn't my case. It's important to live a full life and a good life, and it's its own reward. And I think that I'm not naive about it. I said when we spoke the first time, I said, you know, it's nice to have some money in your pocket. I get that totally. I totally get that. But you can't destroy yourself for it.
Entrepreneurship is not just about how to get rich. Entrepreneurship is about how do you create your own dream life. And the coolest part about it, which I think is amazing, is it's not this hustle culture. Yes, work all the time and sacrifice your family, sacrifice all your things that matter outside of work. It's about finding the right path for you. At the end of the day, billionaires bleed just like you and me. And if you let the price tag on your life be your net worth, it is going to be a painful ride to billionaire status. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't have any interest in paying that price.
Then there's Robert Herjavec, who has an insane net worth of $600 million, but still sounds like an enthusiastic young lad when speaking about meeting Mark Cuban, who's a renowned billionaire, investor, personality, and star of Shark Tank.
I'm on a journey. I want to create more wealth. I want to create more value for me, for my family. And on that journey, I've been very, very fortunate to meet some pretty great billionaires. How did they do it? What lessons can I learn from them? So this series is called 10 Things I Learned from a Billionaire in Order to Become a Billionaire. Is Mark Cuban certainly a billionaire? Just sold 50% of the Dallas Mavericks for $2 billion, giving him a market cap of $4 billion. Do you guys know he bought that team something like 20 years ago for $200 million? And just sold it for $4 billion, that's a great return. What you really know about Mark is he is exactly what you see on TV. He's bigger than life. He fills the room. He has an opinion. He is overtly confident. And my gosh, I really admire that. Beware the man in the t-shirt, not the man in the suit. So before I met Mark, I mean, the guy was worth at the time $3-4 billion. He's worth what, $6 billion now? I thought he would come in and, you know, better dressed. I mean, I'm not talking about a suit and tie, but I thought maybe a nice Lower Piana shirt or even like a Xenia outfit or something. He came in wearing a t-shirt, jeans. When he changed, he just throws his stuff on the ground. I used to wear a suit and tie every day, right? Like wear a suit, dress for the job you want, not the job that you have. All that stuff we've been told. So I'm sitting down with Mark one day and I say, Mark, with all due respect, why do you dress, how do I say it nicely, like a slob? Mark looks at me and he says, Robert, because I can. Here's what I've learned over 16 years. If you walk into a room and there's 20 people sitting there and 20 of them wearing a suit and tie, and there's one person in the back of the room wearing a t-shirt, that's the one with the power. Because that person worked their ass off to get to a position to wear whatever they want to wear. Now, we all have different things we love. I love clothes, I love cars, I love all kinds of things. Mark doesn't. Every person has their own thing. Beware the person in the t-shirt, not the one in the suit. Number 2, expect to win always. By the way, if you're sitting next to somebody who's more powerful, has more experience, is more successful, pick their brain as much as you can. So I'm sitting next to Mark and I say, Mark, when you go into a meeting, do you expect to win always? He's like, yes, 100% of the time. And I'm like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if you lose? What if you risk too much? And you know what he says to me? No, it's going to work out. It really shook me, his level of confidence. I used to think I was a pretty confident guy. When I met Mark, he just took it to a whole nother level. Prior to him saying that, you know what I used to think? I used to go into a situation and say, gosh, I hope it works out. But if it doesn't, I'm going to protect my downside. Mark has no downside. He always expects it to work out. If I'm being honest with myself, I didn't expect it to work out. I hoped it worked out. There's a fundamental difference. By the way, a friend of mine, Matt Higgins, who was also a guest shark, wrote a great book about this called Burn the Boats. There's an old proverb where I think it was the Persian army went a long way offshore to fight this battle, and the general felt that the people were committed, so he burnt the boats so they had no way to retreat. That's Mark. There is no retreat. He always expects to win every single time. The bigger you get, the bigger the bullseye on your back. Mark loves to say that the most competitive sport in the world is actually business. It's not basketball, it's not football. And you know why? Every sport has a beginning and an end. Every sport has a season to it. You know, a football game is X amount of minutes. A basketball game is X amount of minutes. You know what business is? It's full-on contact sport, 24 hours a day. And here's the reality. The bigger you get, the bigger the bullseye on your back. When you're starting out, you're that little guy in your basement taking on the world. It's exciting, it's adventurous. But when you get bigger, guess what? There's somebody else always looking to take you down. Work your ass up every day as though someone is trying to take it away from you. Because you know what? Someone is. Time kills all deals. That's it. If you don't do it in 24 seconds, it's over. I mean, I remember that so clearly. The rest of us were like, what the hell's going on? And the entrepreneurs like, and guess what? They didn't respond in 24 seconds, and he pulled his deal. Now, it's a Mark Cuban thing. He's out there, but guess what? It works. When you attach speed to a decision, it forces people to think. And here's the funny thing is, the less time people have, the more honest they are with their decision.